How's it going, sports fans? This is Jack and Ryan with the Talking Jack Sports Podcast. What's up?
How we doing?
Dude, I'm excited to be here. There's not a whole lot of content going around in the sphere right now, so this feels kind of like a time killer kind of episode before we get to draft day. But we still got some good content, I feel like, yeah?
I feel like we set up we did pretty good digging through the scraps to make a nice meaty podcast for today.
I feel like you're right, yeah. But among the not a whole lot happening in sports, the NBA playoffs are about to start. So, that's exciting, I guess. It doesn't get a whole lot of coverage recently, I feel like. It's less and less exciting every year. But this year, I feel like could change that. There's a lot of Cinderella potential like last year. So
there are
I'm
some
pumped to
interesting
go over
teams
our
here.
brackets. You say what?
There are some interesting teams that I like to see in here,
Yeah, I'm pumped to talk about it. And then we're going to touch on our awards. We did that a couple episodes ago. If you want to check out a deeper dive, but that was also with less of a sample size. So we're going to even it out a little bit today. And then we're going to do some NFL top 10s. We got quarterbacks, we got wide receivers, we got running backs. And we're going to disagree, I feel like, at least going off my own list. I feel like it's
maybe
pretty spicy. So we're going to...
Did you forget to do the kickers top 10?
Oh, I didn't do kickers.
That's unfortunate.
Dang.
Maybe next year.
That's next episode. We're gonna forego the second mock draft to do kickers.
No official
1
mock
hour
draft
kicker
prediction.
top 10, I think.
Just kickers.
Yeah. But speaking of mocks, next week before the draft, we're gonna get out our last mocks, and we're gonna get every pick correct.
100%.
Yeah. But until that happens, we're here. And we're going to talk about our NBA playoff predictions. So I'm going to start with the West because that's what's starting as of tonight, Tuesday, April 16th. It is happening tonight. So whenever this episode gets out, which is probably going to end up being after a play-in game is over because Wi-Fi is really fun and great. No bias here. We are only going off of there's no games have been played. So we'll start in the West with the play-ins. It's the Kings and Warriors is the 9-10 game. And I feel like people are kind of on the Warriors train. I personally don't see it. Aside from Steph, there hasn't been a whole lot of great supporting play around him. And I feel like for the Warriors to win this game, they're going to need a lot from Steph. And the Kings have some really nice offensive firepower. So I'm going to take them to get past the Warriors.
I will, honestly, I'll also take the Kings. Basically, for the exact same reasons of why you said. I mean, it's like they need to really lock in here if the Warriors want to give a good shot.
Yeah, I feel like Sabonis is playing at an all-NBA level. He's having a really nice season despite the Kings maybe falling a little bit short of expectations. But this year's West is an absolute bloodbath. So, I mean, it's really what do you want from him? So, and in the 7-8 matchup, it's the Pelicans and the Lakers. And there have been some conversations about the Lakers actually throwing this first-round matchup and then getting the 8 seed because they'd then be matched up against the Thunder in the first round as opposed to the defending champion Nuggets.
Exactly.
So I personally think that while that idea is stupid, I think they lose anyways. I'm going to take the Pelicans. I think they're just a straight-up better team.
Yeah, so I'm going to go off of what my friend Ethan said because he's a big Pelicans guy.
That's right. Big New Orleans truther.
He believed that they were going to lose and then play the Warriors. But in this scenario, since the Warriors already lost, I'm still going to have the Pelicans to lose just because, they just did it. They just
Do you like the Lakers? Do you think they're going to make any noise? Well, I guess we'll find out, right?
Yeah, I was going to say, I mean, I think the Lakers in the last game, which was on Sunday, kind of, beat them in with a pull, and I would find it hard for them to maybe rally back from that. So honestly, let me get.
I feel like this Lakers
playoffs
team is
LeBron, the playoffs.
I'd be excited to see what happens if they do end up winning this game, but regardless, I have for the 8 seed Kings Lakers. And I'm going to be even more controversial and say the Warriors and the Lakers missed the playoffs. I think the Kings have a really nice matchup, I think, against the Lakers. Once again, Sabonis, he's really solid, but he'll be matched up against Anthony Davis. I think this is a matchup where De'Aaron Fox can really show off his stuff. Their perimeter defense is not super, super amazing. And when you can't lean on Sabonis, Fox is one of the clutchest players in the NBA. So I feel like he gets Sacramento to the playoffs.
See, this is where I am going to say I believe in my Pelicans. Or not my Pelicans, but I believe in the Pelicans. I'm going to have them actually beating. Shoot, who did I say? I think I said the Warriors lost, right?
Yeah, so they would beat
I
the
have
Kings.
them beating the Warriors.
Kings.
Are the Kings?
Yeah.
Did I say the Warriors won?
I'm pretty sure you said the Kings would win.
Who did you say? I said the Kings. I agreed with you. Okay, so then that means that the Warriors are in the 9-10, right? Or no, they're out. Shoot. Okay. No. I double check. I messed up my bracket. Okay, in that case, yes, the Pelicans will beat the Kings. So I confirmed.
There you go. Okay.
Yeah, there we go.
So your 7-8 seeds are the Lakers and Kings. My 7-8 are the Pelicans and Kings. Okay. First round matchup for me, like I just said, it would be the number 1 seed Thunder, which is kind of wild. I don't know how they ended up with the 1 seed, but that's kind of insane for them. What a crazy rebuild.
Yep.
The Thunder face off against the Kings, and in this situation, I think it is a pretty poor matchup for the Kings. I've honestly got Thunder in a sweep.
Yeah, for me, this is where the quote-unquote Cinderella story of how the Pelicans make the playoffs sadly gets, ended. Thunder definitely going to beat the Pelicans.
How many games do you have it going to?
I'll make it say like 3-1. I'd say maybe they get a little.
Do you know how many games are in an NBA playoff series, Ryan?
Best of 7.
Yes, 3-1 would mean they have to play one more game.
Fine, 4-1, close enough.
There you go. in 5, because that's how many total games there are. We can do math, right?
Okay, we can math. Yes.
Cool. Next series, the 2 seed Thunder, 2 seed Nuggets are up against, in my scenario, the 7 seed Pels. And I think the Pelicans are actually kind of a tough matchup for the Nuggets. I think they can give Jokic a little bit of trouble in the middle with Zion. I think Brandon Ingram matches up pretty well against the Nuggets defense, but I've still got the Nuggets taking it in 6. They're really, really, really fucking good.
Yeah, I mean, as much as I want to say, my glorious king is going to beat the Nuggets, I would find it extremely hard to believe that he did. So I will also say Nuggets in 6.
Yeah, that's about right. Okay. Timberwolves Suns for the 3-6 matchup. And this is one that I'm seeing a lot of Suns truthers pick them to go. I think this Suns team is terrible. I think they have no depth. I think they have no considerable defense. I think Rudy Gobert in the middle is not a superb matchup against that Suns offense. And I'm going to take the upstart Timberwolves to take it in 5, actually. I really think this Suns team is just kind of a disaster.
I also kind of agree there. I mean, I think the Suns team, I might think they're a little bit better than what you're thinking, but I still got the Wolves in 6.
Okay. That's fair. Okay, and the 4-5, Clippers Mavericks. These, I think, are the 2 best teams in the West aside from the Nuggets. So I'm curious to see how this goes. I feel like this is going to be one of the best playoff series of the playoffs. But I'm going to take the lower seed Mavericks, who are on a pretty significant hot streak right now, to beat the Clippers in 7.
I, funny enough, also had the Mavericks beating the Clippers in 7.
So we agree through the first 4 series. All right, so that sets up a 1-5 matchup. It's the Thunder and the Mavericks. And here, I think, is where the Thunder's lack of playoff experience kind of gets to them. I think this is where they're really going to find out that Josh Giddey's not startable, and they should have been phasing him out of the rotation, to be honest. This is where the Mavericks trade deadline acquisitions come to life. PJ Washington, Daniel Gafford.
Yep.
I like the Mavs in 6 here.
Honestly, I was also thinking, I feel like there's always got to be one major upset, and the Thunder do be looking like that team that they look very upsettable, So I also will have the Mavs winning, but in 7. Just okay. Make them
slightly better
both.
Series. Yeah, I get it. So the 2-3 matchup, we just saw it play out the other weekend for the West's 1 seed, the Nuggets and Timberwolves, but neither of them ended up actually taking the West's 1 seed, which was interesting. But we saw how that played out. It was close to start, and then the Nuggets pulled away pretty convincingly. And that's what I have this overall playoff series ending up in. I'm going to say Nuggets in 6. I think it'll start out pretty even. Maybe both teams hold serve at home, and then the Nuggets pull away with it.
Yeah, I think with the Nuggets playoff experience here, just get to kind of cook. So I'm going to just say, give me the Nugs in 5.
That's another thing. The playoff experience for the T-Wolves, this is going to be an experience year for them, I feel like, because this is not the end of this rise for Minnesota, and this is going to be really valuable playing up against the defending champs. I think they'll be able to take that into next postseason, where they will be a real significant threat. And they're also dealing with injuries, not to mention Cat, who is just now coming back from a meniscus tear. I can't assume that he'll be exactly the same as before he tore it, so that factors in for sure. But in the Western Conference Finals, we agree it is Nuggets-Mavericks, the 2-5 matchup, but I doubt we will agree on the outcome of this one. I think the Mavericks are a team of destiny this playoffs, and I really, really want to just roll with Luka all the way through. I think it'll be a dogfight, but I think he has his legacy moment and takes the Mavs to the finals in 7.
Listen, I am all for that. I think that would be awesome to watch, to see this Cinderella story, keep going. But there's a reason why the Nuggets are like the big bad.
It's fair.
They're just so good. So I will say Nuggets, but I'll make it feel interesting and say Nuggets in 6.
Okay, make it feel interesting. Make it a 6-game series.
Exactly.
I feel like this would be a similar moment to, I believe it was the 2009 Cavs that LeBron took with basically nobody on the rest of his roster to the finals. But the parallels are, I think, more eerie than you would think, because in the middle of the season, LeBron got some help in the form of trade deadline acquisitions. He got guys from, I believe it was Seattle. I think they still existed at the time. I don't know.
Probably.
Maybe. And I think they got, it was Mo Williams they got at the deadline. This is some historical knowledge off the dome. And then the same thing happened this season. The Mavs were looking kind of shaky middle of the year. They made some acquisitions. It took them a sec to fit in, but they're both playing, they both being PJ Washington and Daniel Gafford, some of the best basketball that they've ever played. And I think they carry the Mavs. Not carry, but I think they take a bit of the burden away from Luka here. So that's the West. Now we move over to the East, which is a significantly worse conference. Wow. The difference between the play-in teams in the East and the West is like 10 games. Like the West play-in teams are both like 3 or 4 games over 500, and in the East they're like 6 games under 500. It's really sad. So I don't really care who wins Bulls Hawks. I'll say the Hawks because they've got better players. They've got younger talent, and you got to roll with the hometown team, right, Ryan?
Exactly. I will also say the Hawks winning that one, no brainer.
And then in the 7-8 matchup, this one's actually pretty interesting, I would say, because it's a 76ers team that's much better than their seeding now that Embiid is back from that meniscus tear, and he's looking pretty good. And then the Heat, who are always better than their seeding because Jimmy turns it up in the playoffs. But here, I like the 76ers to take care of business and remain the 7 seed and force the Heat into elimination.
I was gonna say the record definitely doesn't justify how good this team actually is. And honestly, at this point, I'm not gonna even sugarcoat it. Playoff Jimmy doesn't exist. Let's be real here. 76ers.
Wow. I think he definitely does exist. I mean, he's gonna beat the Hawks in the next round, right?
No.
Really? Come on. No, I don't know. You're going to need to explain.
Let's see. So the Hawks, they have Trae Young, and we're gonna win.
This is about to be some
playoff Trae Young is a generational talent. Okay, they're 10 out of 10. Okay, we beat the Celtics earlier, which is gonna prepare for the next
Hawks
part.
Over the Heat, right?
Nah, dude, I'm taking the Hawks over the Celtics. We're jumping all the way.
No, you're not.
I'm being sarcastic. I'm waking up from my dream. The Heat obviously is going to win that game.
Thank God. I was so worried. Jeez.
But we can dream. Okay.
The Hawks should dream of rebuilding, to be honest with you.
They
okay.
Probably should.
So out of the play-in, The 9 and 10 didn't have a prayer. Seeding stays the same. And the Celtics and Heat in round one. Heat beat them last postseason to go to the NBA Finals as the greatest Cinderella run we've seen in decades. But this Celtics team is too well constructed to do it again. I think they take it in 6. I think they end up making it pretty interesting. But yeah, I think this one's pretty easy.
Yeah, playoff Jimmy will get a little bit of his praise, just enough where it's like, all right, now we can, we can beat them, and they're gonna beat them pretty easily. I'd say also in 6.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so the 2 seed Knicks, that was a bit of a shocker. Take on the 7 seed 76ers, and I think this will be, of the first round matchups, easily the best one. This Knicks team is one of the best that we've seen from them since the Carmelo days. I would say even better than any of those teams. Jalen Brunson's playing like the MVP, and he's got a hell of a supporting cast around him. That whole starting lineup is solid on all fronts. But I will say the 76ers with an Embiid that is, I don't know if rested is the right word, but he hasn't been playing. And while he has been rehabbing another injury, it's almost like another form of load management for him. I feel like he's going to be fresher than in most playoffs. And I think they take it over the Knicks in a big upset in 7.
Honestly, funny enough, I also had the 76ers beating
Wow.
the Knicks
Great.
in 7. I mean, I just love Embiid. Maybe I'm overhyping him a little bit, but he's just good. And I feel like sure the injuries could hinder his his elite level cap, but like I think that's enough to at least get him past to the next round.
Yeah, I think it's kind of a tough matchup defensively for the Knicks to take on Embiid in the paint. I don't think they have a rim protector strong enough to withstand him for enough to win the series. That's kind of my deal breaker there as well. So the 3 seed Bucks, very strategic move for them, moving down to the 3 seed, so they don't have to face the 76ers in the first round. They instead face the Pacers, which is pretty consensus a much worse team despite the better seed. I think the Pacers, beyond Tyrese Halliburton and then the occasional Pascal Siakam performance, are not that great of a team despite their seeding. I'm going to take the Bucks in 5, and this is also in spite of their recent struggles. They've gone, I think, 500 under Doc Rivers. They look pretty vulnerable, but I'm going to take them up the Pacers.
Yeah, I mean the Pacers just don't feel like they have a real good chance here. I'll give them a little bit more. I'll give me the Bucks in 6.
That's fair.
Sneak in another one
with their offensive struggles. Oh, something that I actually did not consider that came out today was that Giannis will reportedly not be playing for at least a game or two in the series. So, given that knowledge, I am going to up this to a 6-game series because I think without Giannis, the Pacers match up a whole heck of a lot better. So I'll give it 6, but I think when Giannis comes back, it won't be close. Okay, now for the 4-5 matchup, which is Cavs Magic. The Cavs did not play their starters the last game of the season, sliding down to the 4 seed so they could play the Magic instead of being the 2 seed and playing the 76ers. I don't really understand how that seeding would have all worked out because there's a number between 2 and 4. But regardless, they're playing the Magic. And many see that as a bad move because if you tell a team that we'd rather play you than another in the playoffs, that's pretty good potential to be embarrassed. And I actually really dig this Orlando team. I think they're fun. I think they've got a great energy about them. I think they're youthful. And I think the Cavs have a lot more question marks with their fit between Jared Allen and Evan Mobley. I think there's been a lot of disappointment in that front court. And I'm going to take the Magic to get a pretty substantial upset despite only a 1 difference in seed. And I think they take it in 6.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, everything that you did say, I agree with for the most fact. Words for the most part. I would be pretty, I'd be pretty pissed off if they found out they benched us just to play like the objectively worst team.
Right.
So I would be fired up as well. I'll also take the Magic. We'll do it in 6.
Okay, so we agree again through 4. How do you feel about the Cavs, Ryan?
Put me on the spot here with my elite level basketball knowledge. Let's see. Honestly, I do think it's a little bit weird to bench all your starters when you could have a chance to play at a higher seed. I think that often bites you in the back more than it actually helps because you're like, oh, we'll rest our starters, but then, they rest for too much and then now they're just not trying as hard.
I agree with you. I'm with you. Okay, second round, we've got another 1-5 matchup. This time it's the Celtics and the Magic. This is where the Magic do not match up super well with this Celtics team. I've said it before and I'll say it again. This Boston roster is one of the most well constructed I've ever seen. I think they'll take it in 5. I'll give Orlando a game, but not much else.
Yeah, honestly, I was gonna give Celtics 4, just full sweep it. They're just too good.
Yeah.
Like,
honestly, that's fair. A sweep in this scenario is very fair, but I'll just be a little bit more lenient towards the Magic. I think they've got some young guns that could overwhelm for a game, but yeah, beyond that, no.
yeah,
Celtics
I
are a
agree.
much better team. Okay, here we see the 3 seed Bucks and the 7 seed 76ers. This one is where I think the Bucks internal turmoil with their coaching staff, with their lack of offensive firepower these last couple weeks of the season, especially, and potentially some Giannis lingering injury, really comes in to bite them. And I think the 76ers, with Buddy Hield, new acquisition, Tyrese Maxey playing the best ball of his career, I think they take this one in 6. Big one for Philly.
I was gonna say maybe call it an upset, maybe just call it in Embiid we trust.
By seeding, it's an upset, but I do think they are better.
Yeah, I think that team could have easily been a number 2 if they had Embiid healthy the entire season.
Yes.
So seeding it's an upset, but realistically, they just have the better team at the moment with not as less turmoil and pain. So I'll also have 76ers in 6.
I'm with you there. Okay. And then in the Eastern Conference Finals, the 76ers are put up against a really tough opponent. I feel like if there's any year for the 76ers to get it done with this roster, it would have been this year. But, man, these C's, they're insane. Down to their 5th option in, what would it be, Derek White? He has, I think one of the highest plus minuses in the entire league. He's, top 5 in plus minus. Down to your 5th option. That's wild. I can't stress enough how dominant these C's are, and anything less than a finals win would be a colossal disappointment. I'll give it to Boston in 6. I'll give Embiid 2 games, but I'll give it to Boston in 6.
See, this hurts my heart because I really want them 76ers to be good. For almost my whole life, they've been kind of trash, And Embiid pulls up and they're starting to win games and stuff like that. But I literally just can't give a valid reason for why they would win against the Celtics. Because it's they have this player. Then you can name 5 from the Celtics.
Exactly. So they're one of the deepest rosters in the league. A guy like Peyton Pritchard is your 9th man. And the other night he had a 35 piece. Exactly. It's insane.
What are you supposed to do against a literal super team? So unfortunately, it would have to be them Celtics in 6.
Yep, we agree there. Our finals matchup does look a little different. We both, of course, have the Celtics. But you have the Nuggets coming out of the West. I have the Mavericks in a wild Cinderella story. But this is where it ends here. Some Cinderella turning back into a pumpkin symbolism. I don't know. But going back to the LeBron, I think it was 09 comparisons. I think just like in the finals where he got smacked by the Spurs, Luka and the Mavericks are going to get smacked by the Celtics. I'll give them a game, but I honestly think the Celtics win a pretty boring final series in 5 if it's against the Mavericks.
So I'm hoping that this is going to be a very interesting game. I feel like the Nuggets versus the Celtics would be a pretty damn good game to watch. And I really want to say the Nuggets here. I really do. But super teams are super teams. Yep. It doesn't matter what time it is. The only time a super team has failed is Tom Brady against the Giants twice. But
no 73-9 Warriors mention.
Oh, true. That could be also one. But
maybe a little more relevant considering that they are.
I'm more of a football guy. Come on, we know this.
So you take the C's.
Yeah, the C's, but we'll make it interesting and say in 7. We'll say it's actually going to be an interesting final.
I think that's fair. So, like most of the general public and actually intelligent NBA insiders, we both have the Celtics winning the finals. I think, like I said before, anything less than a win is a massive disappointment. for Boston. They've got to get it done this year. And then before we get into football stuff, I wanted to gloss through awards once again. Like I said, we deep dove them a little bit more, and we had 2 more people on the pod to give opinions on these awards a couple episodes ago. So check that out if you are interested. But just to go through it, MVP, this is the closest one of any of the debates. Is it Luka? Is it Jokic? It's certainly not anyone else at this point, but shout out to Shea for being number 3 for me. But I'm going to give it to Jokic. His raw stats aren't better than Luka's. People talk about Luka's averages because they are pretty historic. But, I mean, to me, I feel like one of the most valuable stats in basketball is plus minus. And Jokic leads the league, and it's not particularly close. He's like plus 650, and the next guy isn't within, like, I think 80. So I'm going to give it to Jokic.
Yeah, I mean, there's a reason why he's pretty damn good. There's a reason why this Nuggets team is pretty damn good. And yeah, for me, I also have Jokic winning it.
Okay. But, dude, I hope for the sake of Luka that he gets his, because
this would be
that'd be
a
really exciting.
Sad one. Like, I would be sad if he didn't win it, honestly, because
Yes.
he does deserve it. It's just it's Jokic, man. He's doing damn good.
Exactly. Okay, Defensive Player of the Year. There are only 2 guys in the running for this. It's the best player on the best defense in the league in Rudy, or potentially the best overall defender in the league in Wembanyama. But the difference is that his team defense is like 22nd, and like I mentioned, Rudy's is first. And you got to go with the better defense overall. I'm going to give it to Rudy. I'm not too overly excited to give Wemby a Defensive Player of the Year because he's going to get a ton in his career. We can wait.
I was gonna say, give him the next 5 years probably. He'll essentially they'll rename the award to the Wemby Award or something.
It wouldn't shock me.
Yeah. But yeah, Gobert's gonna win it.
I think so too. And speaking of Wemby, Rookie of the Year is obvious at this point. Shout out to Chet for having a really nice rookie year. If it wasn't for Wemby being the best rookie we've seen the last couple decades, he might be in the running. But yeah, Wemby's going to be insane.
I was going to say
already. It blows my mind.
The only person I could maybe compare is LeBron's rookie year, and he still blows him out of the water in almost every single stat, which is kind of insane.
I think so too. Okay, shout out Wemby. He's really good or something. I don't know. Most improved. This one is, at this point, I feel a 2-horse race between Tyrese Maxey and Kobe White. And when I'm looking at improvement, I went into this more in depth in the previous episode, which I keep referencing. Sorry, I keep doing that. But for more analysis on this especially, go check that out. I'm saying Kobe White because there is more improvement in an almost identical workload in terms of minutes per game. And Tyrese Maxey went from really good to great. Kobe White went from potentially off the team in the next year to solid contributor and building block for the future. So, yeah. Also, shout out to Jalen Williams of the Thunder because I would give him 3rd place. J-Dub's been really nice.
Yeah, I'm gonna honestly give Maxey here. Just, I think I explained it a little bit more in that previous one, but essentially, he was able to hold up the 76ers to get at least a play-in game. Especially without having Embiid. It's hard to have your best player gone and still make the playoffs, and they're able to sneak in mainly because of what he was doing.
Yes, that's fair. I just see it as across the board, Kobe White improved.
Yeah,
more.
If you want to talk about from the biggest difference, then yeah,
exactly. Fair. And minutes are a big thing in that, and Kobe White had almost the same amount of minutes this year from last, and he's doing so much more with it. So that's why I give it to him. Okay, 6th man. Previously, I believe we both said Tim Hardaway, and he has fallen quite out of the running in this race. It is right now between, I would say, Malik Monk of the Kings and Naz Reid of the Timberwolves, and I would say it's really close. I don't really prefer one over the other, but I'm going to give it to Naz Reid because I would say he is the best backup center in all of basketball, and he has been starting in place of Cat at least recently. I don't know if it's been the whole time actually, but at least recently he's been starting a little bit, and it's been quite successful in Cat's absence. But for the majority of the year, Naz has been a 6th man and a really darn solid one at that.
Yeah, I mean, I like you said, it's 1A, 1B. Who really cares? But I'm gonna give it to Monk. Why not? Think I love when he comes off the bench to close the games. You able to do things. You able to do things.
Some elite analysis there, Downey.
What can I say?
All right, so Coach of the Year, at this point, it's been a runaway. Mark Dagnall of the Thunder gets it from me, although shout out to Chris Finch for building one of the best defenses in basketball so quickly. But Mark Dagnall of the Thunder getting this young roster full of almost kids. Like, I think it's one of the youngest rosters in the entirety of basketball to the 1 seed in the West. Like, that's a feat.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. A bunch of youngins getting the 1 seed in arguably like easily the most competitive division by far. But like, when you have other teams that have done just as good, the fact that they were able to do it over the more veteran teams, specifically the Nuggets, it's like,
that's super, super, super.
Give them the trophy.
And then Clutch Player of the Year. I think this award is stupid. It's like, how to quantify this award is so dumb and subjective. But I'm giving it to Kyrie because Kyrie Irving's had some really nice clutch performances this year. I think like people are saying it's like DeMar DeRozan. People are saying it's still Steph. I personally don't care at all.
With that being said, Trae Young's gonna win it. No actual valid reason.
Sure.
He's just gonna win it. Yeah.
Give it to Trae. Ice Trae. All right. So those are our awards.
Veins, man.
If he's really got ice in his veins, maybe he will steal the 8th seed in the East. That would be insane, honestly.
That's what I'm saying.
But you'd be pretty sad you didn't stick to your joke prediction. Okay.
Yeah, if that actually happens, I'm going to have to make a rant about the Hawks actually not being a disappointment in the playoffs.
Oh, they're going to be a disappointment. They'll get swept. But if they somehow get the 8th seed, I guess there's potential. I don't know. All right. So that has been NBA playoffs and awards. Now I move into some NFL content. We have.
So which one do you want to start with?
Which one do you have first on your board?
They're all in a line.
Okay, great. Quarterbacks is first for me, so we're doing
all right.
That
quarterbacks is
10
to 1 or 1 to 10.
We build up to number 1 because that one's really a surprise. I wonder who it could be.
I do wonder, honestly.
Yeah, that one's a toughie.
Guess we'll never know.
So criteria, I don't think I based it on like just this past season. If you did that, that's on me. But I based it. There's a lot of consideration to this past year, but it's beyond that. Obviously.
So essentially, what I did was who I would really want going into next season, based off.
That's
of
a really nice way to look
stats.
at it. Yes, I like that a lot.
It does hurt a little bit because there are people who have like age, who will just be a little bit lower, or like injuries. I feel like some of these players could have been higher, but because of injuries, they got dropped a little bit. But yeah, for the most part, I feel like no one's gonna really hate on my list. I doubt it. I mean, you could probably argue who goes what, but for the most part, apart from the top 4, in my opinion, there's a pretty steep drop off.
Yeah, I agree with you there. Okay, so let's get into it. I've got. I tried not to do number 11s, which is something that I'm really prone to do when I do top 10s because it's like I got to mention one guy and give him a spot. But I have a number 11, I guess, for this one. But before I get into that, my 2 honorable mentions that don't have a spot. I wanted to shout out Kyler Murray because I think he's had some tough times with injuries as of late. But it would not shock me if he comes back this season with potentially one of the best wide receivers we've ever seen in Marvin Harrison, who looks poised to be picked at 4. And he lights up the league. So it would not shock me there. And then also, I don't know what Aaron Rodgers is, so I chose not to rank him. But once again, in a really nice offense with a really nice defense, wouldn't shock me if Aaron Rodgers has a renaissance here with the Jets. But it also wouldn't shock me if he doesn't.
Yeah, essentially for what I did for honorable mentions are people who you could easily argue into this at least top 10, but I left them out for X, Y, and Z reason.
Right.
Some of these might be more controversial, but the bottom tier of that honorable mentions is Baker Mayfield, Aaron Rodgers, Matthew Stafford, and Kyler Murray.
Interesting.
They could all. I feel like you could all argue them in that top 10.
2 of those names are very interesting for
2 of those
opposite reasons. One of them being I didn't have him super close to this top 10, and the other I had him higher than you.
I was gonna say I'm guessing Baker's the one back and Stafford's the one forward. If just knowing you
are correct. Spoilers.
And then the other honorable mentions, which you might hate me for, Tua, Dak, and Herbert are honorable mentions as well.
Wow.
They are
Hold
being
on.
barred at the moment.
Justin Herbert?
Just it hurts for me to say it. It's just I don't know what you want from this dude at this point. Like I don't see one elite level receiver being able to help him that much. Like I would personally, I would want him
That's
higher.
I disagree with that so
It
heavily.
sucks.
Wow.
It sucks. I do.
I will say my piece on him when he comes up, but I disagree with leaving him out so heavily. Wow.
It was hard for me to make a decision, man. I'm not gonna lie, because he's in such a shitty spot too. It's like you feel bad for him, and you know he can do better. And honestly,
Yeah.
you might hate me because my next top 10, like I'd say up to my 7 is you're gonna have probably questions say, "Oh, Herbert's better," and I wouldn't disagree with you.
I don't agree with this at all. Wow. Okay.
I'm sorry. I feel bad for Herbert, but he could easily be top 5 if he gets any help.
Okay, you can continue with your honorable mentions, but wow.
That was it. I mean, Tua, Dak, good systems, whatever. I don't like either of them either. So
okay, so my number 11, which is my 2, I guess I have tiers as well. My other honorable mentions are below, and my number 11, which is shared between 2 guys, are my next tier up. I also have Dak in that number 11 spot because he has consistently fantastic regular seasons. Well, fantastic might be a little bit much, but he has very impressive regular seasons, and then he just simply cannot get it done in the playoffs. And I, at this point, with the rosters that he has been surrounded with, cannot give him credit enough to put him in top 10 without playoff wins. I can't. And also at number 11, this one might ruffle feathers. Jalen Hurts shares a spot with Dak at number 11 because I think his play style got really exploited this past season. Numbers-wise, he still had fantastic numbers, but he had quite a second half meltdown this past season, and I am unsure if the play of the previous season is sustainable throughout his career. This is a pretty make-or-break year for him, I feel like, to determine how far this Eagles core can really go again, because I don't know if the Super Bowl year was a fluke. I mean, he certainly played well in the big game, but I honestly am kind of torn on how to compare him to other guys.
Yeah, no, I understand. I kind of had like the same situation with Herbert. It's just bro's team is so bad. Okay, like I could put him up the 8 with who I see at 8 for me, but like I would rather take these guys for X, Y, or Z. And at number 10 for me, I have Jalen Hurts. Like you said, for the most part.
So we have similar thoughts on him. I'm cool with
this. That's fine. It'll be interesting to see where you put Herbert because I know he's in the top 10 and he's
in the top 10. This is true. So real quick, a guy that I also want to mention as being one of my biggest disappointments at this position is Trevor Lawrence. He is not in my top 10 or my honorable mentions, and I am personally massively disappointed with him. And I think that there is potential that he is simply not even the guy in Jacksonville.
That's
his meltdown this season, while affected by injury, yes. Just I have so many questions with him, and I just chose to leave him out of this exercise entirely because we're giving him a lot of mulligans. I feel like his rookie year, he deserved one. His sophomore season, he improved a lot, and then this past year, I feel like he's getting a lot of mulligans. Despite having major regression. So I wanted to mention him really fast because
essentially I think me and you just did the same thing, but on 2 different people.
Yes. He is my Justin Herbert, I feel like. Okay.
So you're 10.
Number 10, I have Brock Purdy. So Purdy's also kind of interesting to rank because it's the debate of how much credit do you give him or the team around him. But at a certain point, you have to accredit the quarterback for delivering the football accurately and efficiently. He had the best passer rating in the NFL this past season, I believe. And he had an MVP case until the Ravens shellacked him in the regular season and Lamar stole it. So I think Brock Purdy is really solid. Do I think he can win a Super Bowl? Maybe not. But there are very few guys in the NFL that can. So he's my number 10.
Funny enough, you have him at 10. I have Brock Purdy at 9.
Okay,
fair. Around the same reasons. I think, it's hard to not say that he's a top 10 quarterback when his first year he brought him to a championship, and then the only reason you could argue the only reason why they lost that game was because he got hurt and they had literally nobody else.
Mm-hmm.
And then this year, the first full year he tears it up and gets to a Super Bowl. And honestly, maybe my memory is failing me. I don't recall him doing necessarily bad in the Super Bowl, but
No, he wasn't bad, but there was a lot of criticism that he didn't make the big plays when needed to.
yeah, which
And I
is
think there's
fair.
some truth to all of that. But it certainly wasn't a bad performance. Just one that's
Exactly.
like, it reaffirmed a lot of doubters that are like, he doesn't have the clutch gene to beat a guy like Mahomes.
Well,
You know,
it's Mahomes. Like, are we really gonna hate
I
on
know,
someone
I
for not
know, I
being
know.
Mahomes?
That's
But
that's the whole thing. It's
yeah,
like
like
how he is the bar. So it's
I
like,
was gonna say, like when you get a quarterback who has a lot of winning, it's very difficult to leave him out of the top 10 list
mm-hmm.
unless they're like objectively bad, like Jimmy
Yes,
G.
exactly. Jimmy G catching strays right now. That's crazy. I mean, deserved, but unnecessary. Okay. My number 9 is probably going to be the most controversial of both of our lists. Maybe I have Jordan Love at number 9.
I you might be underselling Jordan Love here, man. I'm not even gonna
Really?
lie. When you look at the stats this year, like I know we only have 1 year off of him, but apart from like his meltdown against the Falcons, which was just hilarious,
You got to
um,
see that one yourself.
yeah, that was very fun to watch. He honestly exceeded my expectations and more. Like I did not think Jordan Love was going to even be a top 20 guy,
Yeah,
and
I
he
agree
he
with you.
did
That's kind of
really
how I
damn
look at it
good
as
on like
well.
a. And if you look at the people around him, he doesn't have anyone like
Yes,
insane.
that's the argument that I was going to make. He made mediocrity look really, really damn good
Exactly.
this past year. And it's like, I don't know how you want to compare his roster around him with like other guys, but I would say on average, pretty much every unit of his team is pretty mid. Like he's got okay O line play, nothing
Yep.
spectacular. He's got okay weapons around him. Some dealing with injuries, but nobody's super
I was gonna
elite.
say your best one's your running back, and that doesn't help you a whole
Yeah,
lot.
and Jones did not play a significant portion of the season, and then that defense had a whole lot of holes. Not great, especially down the stretch. The
Yep.
defense was being significantly carried by Jordan Love and the offense. And then beating Dallas in the playoffs was the cherry on top that I needed to push him in here. But you
He
have
does in
some.
fact get the bonus points there.
Yes, he does, and you have some high praise for him. So, do you have him coming up?
So at number 8, I'm going to call a little bit of an audible here, just because I'm gonna put him on the same list. I'm gonna have it be a shared one because it's like the people below him. Because I feel bad for Herbert, I'm gonna put Herbert and Trevor Lawrence at 8. Those who are
Interesting.
like my solid 8 guys. They're both kind of in the same scenario
No, hey,
as
you
their
left
teams
Herbert out.
suck.
You can't amend it
Well, I,
now.
I I can't amend it. All right then, fine. Fuck Herbert. Like
Yeah, you left him
he's
out.
ass. He's a bum.
Stick
He's a
to your
bum. All
guns.
right, I'll stick to the guns. I have Trevor Lawrence. I'd rather have Trevor Lawrence's 6'7" lengthy boy than Justin Herbert's 6'6" beautiful hair. They're basically the same person. Okay, like
I disagree so much. Okay.
um, I
Um
also am not very high on any of his like
here is
receivers.
why no,
I
I'm going
don't
to
like
save
any
it
of
cuz
them.
I have him on the list. I'm going to talk about him eventually. I'm going to save it. Okay. So, hang on, but why do you like Trevor Lawrence? Not
I
even in a comparison to Justin Herbert, just in general. Why is
in
he
in
so high
in
for you?
general, I think there's a lot of things that he gets a lot of more bonus points just because he has mobility. I think the Jags, people want the Jags to be a good team, but when I look at that team, I don't see anything like spectacular. It's honestly a little bit like a Jordan Love scenario, but worse because once again, your best player for your offense is probably your running back, maybe Evan Ingram. Like I wasn't super high on Calvin Ridley just because one, he left, so he hurt my feelings, but two, like I didn't think any of those guys were like once as good as they were. They feel very like shell.
But at the same time, you are surrounded with pretty considerable talent at almost every area of your offense except for your protection. I will say, I will give him credit there, or I guess I will give the offensive line no credit at all. They were pretty terrible.
Their line
Um,
was trash.
but at the same time, you are not elevating the talent around you, and instead they are regressing in a system where they were supposed to thrive. And that is why I value him so much less. Does that make sense?
I can understand where you're coming from. I don't even like hate that take either. I mean, you could say that like his team technically regressed from once it once was, but I just never thought I've never seen the Jags be like a super good team in my mind.
Well, it's not about what the Jags were. It's about where his weapons were and what they did coming in. Specifically, Calvin Ridley came into this offense expecting to be a number one guy. We expected him to be even better than he was in Atlanta. And whether you want to put this on Ridley or on Lawrence himself, I am going to attribute a decent chunk of it to Lawrence himself. He made Calvin Ridley worse. I'm going to just say it. I think he made it worse.
I just think Calvin Ridley just wasn't as hyped as people think. I mean, he had a lot of success in Atlanta because he was the shadow of Julio Jones. Like, he was the under guy. And then he takes a 2-year break from football. One was voluntary, and the other one was because he likes that money. But like,
he was on underdog, yeah.
When you leave the NFL for 2 years, you regress so much more than I think most people think. I mean, Deshaun Watson, another good example of someone who's been gone for more than a year, and he regressed heavily. Like, he's not even on this list, and I feel like people could say that he could be on that list if he was playing how he was as a Texan. It's just I didn't expect much from Ridley. I did not see Ridley. I could see him as a receiver 1, but I did not see him as a top 10 receiver in this league. I did not see him as a top 15. He was like, okay, he was good. In my eyes, he was like the same level as like Drake London's ceiling. Like, it's like he could be decent, but I don't think he's gonna put up like 1,500 yards and 10 touchdowns.
Yeah, I just think we look at T-Law very differently. I'm done giving mulligans. I think that what you see is what you get at this point in your career, and what you're getting, at least this past season, is a mediocre guy that can occasionally make plays, but is carried by his physical stature and his physical tools, and doesn't have the intangibles.
I mean, honestly, you're not necessarily wrong in anything that you're saying. I do think that the circumstances is just as bad than his year 1 and 2. I will say there won't be an excuse for this coming year. If he plays horrible, then it's like, all right, get him out. Mm-hmm. But it's the same thing for both him and Herbert. It's just they're on shitty teams. It's really difficult to say how good they are if they're on a team that's just so dog water.
That's fair, and I will again say my piece on Herbert when he comes up. But for now, back to the list at number 8. I have Jared Goff. I have him all the way up at number 8. Oh, did somebody forget Jared Goff? That's embarrassing.
All right, we're gonna just remove T-Law, put Goff there. We're gonna put him at 8. I forgot. I feel so bad
about Jared Goff. But yeah, that's embarrassing
tough.
For you.
That's tough.
You're reminding me of somebody right now. Somebody that used to be a frequent podcast. Okay.
This is some S tier throwing on this list right now.
Yeah, this is a massive throw. But he's listening to reason and throwing Trevor Lawrence off the list in favor of Jared Goff. We love it. Okay. Jared Goff, if there's ever a word that I would use for him, it is professional. Like, that guy, he looks like a damn quarterback. And it's like the numbers are so consistently above average, and I feel like he is elevating his team's play. It's tough to rate a guy who is like some people would call almost boring. I feel like the way that he plays, but it is surgical, and he is, like I said, elevating his team. He is turning guys that were project 5th round wide receivers into top 10 guys that we'll talk about in a second. He is helping rookie tight ends become all pros. And of course, he's taking advantage of what's around him, that being maybe one of the best offensive lines in football. But he also is having to overcome a defense that is, for lack of a better term, below average.
Yeah.
So I would say there's a ton of positives with Jared Goff, and there's not a whole lot of outright negatives, which is what boosts him up here.
Yeah, I was just typing in Jared Goff to replace Trevor Lawrence in that spot. So now Trevor's now an honorable mention here.
I convinced you successfully that he's.
I just totally forgot Jared Goff existed. I mean,
yeah, that's an L for you.
And then I'm not booting off Brock Purdy or Jalen Hurts. So sorry, Trevor Lawrence.
That's tough.
It's the NFL,
Mm-hmm.
Changes like that happen, as fast as me typing Jared Goff into my phone.
Exactly.
So at number 7, maybe.
I have a feeling you're about to hella overrate somebody, or maybe the other way around.
Kirk Cousins.
Whew, I was right. Wow, hella overrated. That's insane. Kirk Cousins is not the 7th best quarterback in football. Wow.
Listen, man.
He is not even an hononorable mention for me. He's insane. Good, but he's not the 7th best quarterback in football, buddy.
Listen.
You can copy him all you want, but he is not the 7th best quarterback in football.
Bro, he's literally just a better version of Jared Goff.
False.
It is literally just boom. It's just this.
I'm going to use my elite argumentative skills right now. Wrong.
Damn. Well, I don't know. He was on pace to be the NFL MVP.
So are you using 7 weeks of last year's Kirk Cousins to evaluate what he is after an Achilles tear? Because if so, I would ask you to reconsider.
I am using it because it was very promising until he broke his ankle, and every season up until that point, he was honestly killing it in the stats. It's
I'll let you have this one just because you need something good in your life as a Falcons fan. So I'll be sympathetic right now. Maybe if Kirk Cousins signed with Washington again, I would put him at 7th best. I think probably I'm not doing that because
I think he's a very no nonsense guy. Kirk, great locker room presence.
Here we go.
He's got a lot of grit, man. He's just got that talent. He's got that
real daughter dater there.
Yeah, real daughter dater in there. All right.
Thank you for your amazing piece on why he's the 7th best quarterback in football. Now it's my turn. I think we value these two very similarly, but this is a guy who will forever be paired with the number 8 guy on my list, Jared Goff. At number 7, I have Matthew Stafford. I am the biggest Stafford fan that isn't a Rams fan, which is, I guess, maybe the 8th biggest Stafford fan, because there's only 7 Rams fans that exist. But anyways,
Kirk Cousins is better than Matthew Stafford here. Come on, man.
Stafford is still elevating guys like he was doing a decade ago. And it's hard to put it into stats because compared to guys on this list, he might not have had explicitly better raw numbers. But I will look at I'm going to do what you did and take a very small sample size and make it my entire opinion. Mm-hmm. This year's playoff game, which he lost, he had some nasty, nasty numbers if you want to look it up. It was really insane stuff for a guy that's about to turn, 36 maybe? That's kind of insane. Here's the part where I look it up. Matthew Mayhew? Nope. Matthew.
No, not Mayhew.
Did I get it?
Football Reference.
36. He is 36. Okay, I'll accept that one. I still think is elite and capable of winning another Super Bowl should he have the pieces around him. That is my piece.
Yeah, I do like him. I don't like him as much as most, just because back in the day he always was compared to Matty Ice, and those two are not on the same level.
Well, of course, back in the day, one of them won an MVP and the other didn't. But also at this point in their career, one of them won a Super Bowl and the other didn't.
Well, womp womp. It is a womp.
Okay, buddy.
But
womp womp, you wait at number 6 on your list.
Oh, okay. Let me just go to number 6. Number
what,
6.
What's your piece on?
No, I was trying to just look at Kirk Cousins' overall things just to compare. But no, I'm being. Well, we'll worry about that later.
Kirk Cousins.
Listen, man, they're at least equal.
Okay.
Kirk Cousins is gonna win the Super Bowl.
Sure.
Here, okay. Just watch. But at number 6, I have Jordan Love.
Wow! At number 6?
I think it's not that big from what you had. You had him at 8, right?
Dude.
Or no, you had him at 9.
I had him at 9, but
listen, man.
wow.
I was really sitting down and looking at the stats, and I'm like, shit, he's good. Like,
no, I know, but
he's really
wild.
good. He's really good, man.
The 6th best quarterback in football. I don't know about that.
The amount of elevation, man. That team. I don't think any of can you honestly look at me and say that Green Bay team was expected to make the playoffs, let alone win a game?
Some people had them doing that, yeah.
Well, probably like the Green Bay fans.
Okay.
Like, I think they finally got the guy that they,
finally. Bro, shut your mouth. The Green Bay, they finally got the guy after 3 Hall of Fame quarterbacks in a row.
They got their elite level replacement that they've been doing for the last half a century. Like, he is damn good. Some of those throws, apart from like the Falcons one where he was probably intoxicated when he was playing. Like, I look at
the only explanation, of course.
How do you fake a QB sneak, man? That was rough. Or doing the splits when you throw a ball. Those two are rough. But like, fair. Even in like the one that he lost, he played pretty solidly, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, I respect the opinion. I don't agree, but I feel like you make me look a lot better. Having Jordan Love at 9 and then you having him at 6 makes me look a little better. I appreciate that, at least.
Shut up.
Okay, so speaking of number 6, I'm finally going to get to go on a rant about Justin Herbert. He is the 6th best quarterback in football. I don't care about his team success because at a certain point, this is super, super contradictory to what I just said.
I was about to say, if you're about to say the whole,
I'm 100% contradicting myself about Trevor Lawrence. I think Justin Herbert, and I talked about this earlier, this is the biggest stat that like blows my mind about how actually good that he is. Surrounded by injuries and underperformance on all of his weapons, with a pretty terrible O-line aside from like maybe some solid Corey Linsley play and Rashawn Slater when healthy, and an objectively awful defense. And on top of all that, complete like circus show in the front office, at head coach. He has just had to deal with a firestorm around him at all times since being drafted. Despite all that, they were like an okay team this year, and the minute he gets injured and they put in Easton Stick, that team is the biggest dumpster fire in the NFL, save for like maybe the Panthers, and like I'll be objective here and say maybe the Commanders. It's like it blows my mind how much he held the team afloat. That is why that's all I have to say.
Yeah, also, sorry, I forgot to mention the whole Trevor Lawrence thing. He didn't even do, like, super bad this year. He passed for 4K. He had 21 touchdowns and 14 interceptions.
It's the regression that kills me. If you look at it, it's pretty significant regression from the previous year. Justin Herbert's had kind of a stagnant performance from year to year.
He did,
I would say,
lower, but, like, he's not necessarily a bad quarterback. I don't know if you're saying he's a bad quarterback or not. He did regress.
I think he's fine. I think he has potential to come back up into the top 10. But I had MVP like expectations for the man this year. I thought he would jump up in like a top 3 territory, and he regressed pretty significantly with I was going to say objectively, with an arguably better team around him than the previous season.
Okay, I was going to say arguably better because everyone expected the world from Calvin Ridley. But honestly,
we've gone on about Ridley, so let's.
I was going to say T-Law and Herbert are like super, like same side or the two sides of the same coin. Like they're both in just bad situations. It just sucks for them.
Yes, I will agree with you there.
All right. Moving on to number 5. This is where I think I actually have these like locked. These are locked spots.
Okay.
And if you disagree, you might be wrong here. So,
I think the top 5 is going to be the same. It's just the order.
And number 5, I have CJ Stroud.
Yep, I saw that one coming. Okay, that's fair. I think that's.
Are you also up in that 5 or no?
Say your piece first.
Okay.
About him.
One, I I really don't like ranking rookies over veterans who have shown that they're better. That's
Yeah.
just a me thing. He's had 1 year, an insanely good year. Got a really bad team to the playoffs, and I mean, you could say like, oh, Nico Collins, Tank Dell, but it's like I don't know how good those guys would be if CJ wasn't there.
We saw how good a guy like Nico was, which is not
Nico was
very
still, yeah.
right?
It was pretty when they were out. I mean, they did not perform well when CJ was not in, and they were able to get at least I think they got a playoff win, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, they got a playoff game after being
they
the
fell
second,
to the Ravens in the second round.
Being the 31st worst team in the NFL. So like they did a damn good job drafting. Apparently, taking tests doesn't mean jack. He throws footballs. But yeah, I just love CJ Stroud here. 5, and honestly, the sky's the limit for him.
Okay, perhaps unfairly, but at number 5, I have Joe Burrow. I know. This one's tough because there's a lot of contradictory behavior, I feel like, on my own list. But Joe Burrow, I had kind of an eye opener with him when looking at playoff stats, which is what mostly carries his ratings. He has never had a great playoff game, and this year, when injured, his backup had very similar stats to when he has been healthy. Objectively worse, but similar. And they play very similarly and had very comparable success in the offense. And I don't want to say that Joe Burrow and Jake Browning are the same quarterback, but I do want to say that Joe Burrow is, I think, at this point, overrated. That is all that I have to say.
Oh God! Listen,
say your piece because you're gonna have him at like number 3 or 2. Just say your piece on him when we get there, and then
I'll say my piece. I'll hold off. Obviously he's higher on my list for multiple reasons, but are we at number 4?
Yes.
All right. I think we actually might have the same person here. Maybe I have Josh Allen at number 4.
Oh, I disagree.
Ooh, buddy. All right. Fair enough.
I don't agree with that.
Listen, my biggest thing with him is he puts up insane stats. I can't get over the turnovers, man. Turnovers lose games. Right, wrong. You could have 40 touchdowns in a game, and it would only take one interception for it to go the exact opposite direction. Okay, not 40. Obviously, you'd win with 40. But, like, you could have an insane game, but, like, touchdowns.
I think you're overvaluing.
I might be overrating a certain person. Yeah. I might.
No. I think you have a very interesting view. I think this is like a sheeple moment because there's a big like Josh Allen is not that great movement.
I'm not even saying Josh Allen's not that great. I just
you put him at the 4th best in the league. Of course you're not saying he's not that great, but you are saying I think you are overvaluing those turnovers.
I am the only person that I was contemplating to put over him is somebody you already mentioned. That's the only person I would rather have the number 1 and 2 over Josh Allen.
Okay.
And I mean, I don't think I'm insane to say that. I do think interceptions are a concern and fumbles are a concern. That is something that you don't like seeing in a quarterback that can win games, but just as much he can lose them. It's like if you were ahead in winning, you're good. If you need that points, if you need the go ahead game winner, it's like these other 3 people I feel like have a better job at closing that game out well than Josh Allen does. I love Josh Allen. I don't even hate I'm not even like saying he's just a bum. Like he is easily the 4th best. There's a steep drop off between him and Allen and Stroud. Like
sure,
the dual threat. Big guy. He can get rushing.
I will defend him when his time comes. But as of now, number 4 on my list is Lamar Jackson. Lamar is polarizing because it's it's the comparison between playoff success and regular season success, and it's how much do you value both. I want to say that I didn't really consider a whole lot of Lamar's playoff track record before this season because he has had to play a lot of hero ball. He has had to overcome kind of lackluster supporting casts. But this season, his playoff meltdown was a concern because he had all the pieces around him. They were the best team in football, and they were expected to at least make the Super Bowl. And they did not. I still feel like in that game, he did enough to make me not drop him too much because of it. And in the regular season, it's evident that he has such a unique skill set that I value him over a guy like Joe Burrow at this point. Because in my little make-believe scenario, flip their two teams, and I think Lamar can take the Bengals to the Super Bowl, and I think Joe Burrow would take those Ravens to similar playoff success that Lamar has had. But it's tough to say that because it's such different systems that are geared around such different quarterback play. But that's why these lists are subjective, man.
I mean, I was going to say subjective. I mean, if you want to bring up playoff success, the Bills have been a second round out for like the last 3 years. So
how much of it can you put on Josh Allen, though?
I will let the...
Because I would say a majority of it falls on the lack of ability to play defense.
Let the Chiefs one slide. The Chiefs one was rough. 13 seconds. That was about as peak Josh Allen as you could get.
Well, no, there's been multiple Chiefs ones. Like even this past season. Like this was the year for Josh to do it. And he still didn't do it. Yet I have him higher than you by more than one spot. So
once again, I don't have any beef with any of these quarterbacks. This is where it gets super subjective at the end of the day.
Yes, I agree.
So we have 3, right?
Yes. Okay. Top three.
3. I have Joe Burrow at 3.
Oh, okay. So at least we agree in terms of who is better.
I do think it is a 1A, 1B between Burrow and Allen. I think those two they're still neck and neck. I mean, I think I remember talking about last year that I liked Burrow a little bit more because of the playoff success, which is still technically up there on the table. I understand that, Browning and Burrow did play similarly this year. However, Burrow was also on a calf strain, which messes up a lot of what he does.
I know.
And then my biggest concern for this year is he could easily drop out of this top 10 solely because of that hand injury. That hand injury scares the crap out of me. Anytime like a quarterback gets his arm or wrist or whatever injured, it is super concerning going into the year after.
Yeah.
So honestly, that like Burrow could possibly even fall out of the top 10 if that actually hinders him as much as what could happen.
Yeah, but there's a chance.
I just don't see any reason why I wouldn't want a more accurate, less overturn the ball. I feel like he's a little bit better in the clutch, not by a lot, but just by a hair.
This is where I disagree, but okay.
So that's why I got him at 3.
Okay. Fair. I get it. I just, again, maybe more of a projection than an evaluation as of now. But speaking of a projection, at number 3, I have CJ Stroud. I legitimately think that he is better than everyone else below him right now. And what I saw from him is the best rookie season out of a quarterback in a long-ass time. And he, like you mentioned, elevated talent around him considerably. He did it while protecting the football at a really impressive rate, especially for a rookie. And speaking of rookies, he was dealing with a first-time young head coach that is specializing on the defensive side of the ball. And who expected them to be like a winning team? Nobody. It's just, it seriously blows my mind what CJ Stroud did with the talent around him, especially considered. Yeah, I just, It's so impressive to me. And this season he'll be the MVP favorite. Whether he wins it or not, I am weary of because of my Trevor Lawrence prediction this past year. He is kind of this year's Trevor Lawrence expectations kind of guy. So whether he wins MVP this year, I don't know.
I also kind of feel like Diggs might be a bit of a hindrance more than people think.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that.
Very
I kind of agree.
But no, honestly, I don't hate CJ putting him at the 3. I think it's not anything to his skill. Just he did have a better defense than in like. I feel like the Texans defense could actually step up when you compare them to the Bengals or the Bills defense, especially now since the Bills have
in spots. I could agree with that. Yeah.
So no, I don't hate that, and honestly, I'm easily saying my prediction for who's going to be top 10 like next season. I would probably put him at 2 or 3.
Yeah.
But this is just who I'd want going into next year.
Mm-hmm.
With that being said, number 2, I have Lamar Jackson.
Okay.
I think he dialed back the rushing ability, but we all know he still has it. He's learned to just be super accurate on a basis, and he's able to play hero ball. Like he showed the most hero ball probably out of any of those quarterbacks this season than I've ever seen. I mean, honestly, if you want to just talk about him like tearing apart defenses, the Niners defense was arguably like the best defense apart from maybe the Cowboys and maybe the Eagles, but like
no, I would say that they're one of, if not the best. The Ravens actually themselves had the number one scoring defense, but
that's reasonable too. But like when you go against the Niners and you dismantle them like that, that is something that I take note of. Being able to beat a team like that is insane.
Yeah, it's understandable. I get it. I have similar thoughts on it. I just value his playoff track record, I think, a little bit more. But again, we have similar thoughts on it. I think I like guys better as opposed to liking Lamar worse, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, it's honestly just pick your player after like the top 5. It's pick what play style.
We can agree that there are 5 quarterbacks in the that separate themselves.
Notably better. Exactly.
Yeah.
At this point,
so I'm glad we can agree on that. At my number 2, I'm now going to say a quick piece on Josh Allen because I think he's the second best quarterback in football.
Not even a horrible take. Like I could. Yeah. Let me see. Lee Cook.
He had the most touchdowns in football this past season. It's almost as simple as that. The second half of the season actually told me a whole lot because the first half of the season, there was a lot of considerable turnovers. There was a lot of tough losses. There was a lot of doubts with the Bills, including myself. There were a lot of people projecting them to, at that point, miss the playoffs. Yet, with Stephon Diggs having his worst second half of a season in his career, which that's ESPN stat, but it's especially notable in the second half of the season. He had some pretty awful stats. The Bills were doing a whole lot of winning. And Josh Allen was playing some of the best football of his career. And that's what tells me the most. It's because it's more of Allen made Diggs over Diggs made Allen. And that's kind of a big debate now that he's been traded. So, Josh Allen, I don't look at the turnovers as big of a concern as you. It's that he scores the football.
I mean, you're talking about total touchdowns, right? Because
yes.
Okay, because I mean, I have the stats pulled up because I was trying to.
Was I wrong? I thought he had the most total touchdowns.
Yes. Total touchdowns, you might be correct there. I just have passing at the moment. He had 29 on 18. Which the 18 interceptions is just a lot, man. That's a lot of interceptions, and that's not even including the fumbles. I don't think he fumbled a whole lot. I do believe you're right that he is the most total touchdowns because rushing.
I want to make sure I'm.
But the part that the only person who threw more interceptions than him is Sam Howell. It's not the best.
We don't need to have Sam Howell catch strays right now, buddy. He's not even on my team anymore.
Listen, man. Okay.
That was unnecessary.
He's just second behind Sam. That's all I was trying to say.
Lord. Can I go one day? dude.
One day without mentioning Sam Howell hate.
Jeez. Okay, you're not wrong.
Well, he had 15. So Josh Allen had 15 rushing touchdowns on top of the 29.
Does that put him at first?
I don't
know if
Dak
it does.
had
Actually.
like 5. Then
it might have been Dak that led the league in touchdowns.
Whoops. Dak has a handful.
If it's Dak, then Dak's number 2 in the league. My bad.
For real.
Dak's
but anyway, at least we all can agree who's the top 5. You know.
Yeah. Top 5 guys are the same.
Number 1, Mahomes.
Number 1, Mahomes.
We all know. You know, just. Yep. He's good. He wins games. He
shout
does
out to
good.
Shout out. The great guy. Okay. That took a lot longer than I thought it would.
That did take a lot longer.
I
don't know if I can run through these that fast, man.
Yeah, I'm thinking maybe we save our others for later, put in the back pocket, because that's gonna push this to like double the length. So
I was gonna say, I think we did this last time too.
We did. I remember we were talking about. I was like, it'll be different, and then we spent 45 minutes talking about quarterbacks. But you know. I'm glad we did that because there was
Kirk Cousins is top 10. Trevor Lawrence and Justin Herbert are about the same scale. And Josh Allen is mid for being a top 5 receiver.
Okay, that's what we learned. We learned that I'm wrong and you're right, apparently.
Facts, for real, 100%.
Great. Okay. Thanks for watching, listening to Talking Jack Sports. We have correct opinions and great commentary.
We're both right.
Thank you. Better opinions, better commentary, Papa John's. Follow the TikTok. I haven't posted in a minute, but maybe there's going to be content there. And there is more different content hopefully coming out on the YouTube semi-soon, potentially. Even you don't know about that one.
I was going to say,
you get to be surprised when it uploads. So until next time, mock draft next time, that's going to happen. So I guess we save wide receivers, running backs for after the draft. Sorry for debating you at the start, I guess. But yeah, this has been Talking Jack Sports. As always, Jack and Ryan, we crushed it. See you next time.